Pete did everything right. He planned every date. He sent thoughtful texts. He checked in all the time. Hey, you okay? Because he cared. And the more he did, the more she pulled away. That's the pattern no one talks about. The harder you try to be chosen, the less you get chosen. Machiavelli saw this 500 years ago, not as dating advice, as a rule of human nature. Today we're breaking down what he meant, why psychology backs it up, and what Pete finally figured out. Stay till the end, because the last lesson is the one most men never hear. Act 1. Pete's Mistake and the Approval Trap. Pete wasn't a bad guy. That's what made this so confusing. He was thoughtful. He remembered small things she said weeks ago and brought them up on dates. He'd rearrange his whole schedule when she was free. He texted first, always, long messages, carefully written. When she went quiet, he'd ask, sometimes twice, "Is everything okay? Did I do something wrong?" From the outside, it looked like devotion. From the inside, it was something else entirely. It was fear. The fear that if he stopped performing, she'd lose interest. So he kept performing. This is what psychologists call anxious attachment. John Bowlby mapped these patterns back in the 1960s. Amir Levine expanded the research and nailed the core problem. Anxious attachment isn't about love. It's about soothing your own fear. The anxious partner isn't asking, "How can I connect with you?" They're asking, "Please confirm I'm not about to lose you." Those are two completely different questions. And the person on the receiving end feels that difference every single time. Pete wasn't showing love. He was broadcasting low-grade panic. And here's the part that makes this hard to hear. He had no idea. He thought he was being a great partner. He thought effort was the answer. But effort pointed in the wrong direction doesn't build connection. It builds walls. So why didn't she just tell him? Why didn't she say, "You're doing too much"? Because most of the time, people can't put this into words. They just feel it. Something feels off, something feels heavy, and they start creating distance without fully understanding why. Here's what you need to understand about how people work. We read signals, not intentions. Pete meant to show he cared, but what she received was a signal that he didn't trust the connection, that his mood rose and fell with her reply speed, that his whole emotional balance sat on her shoulders. And when your stability depends on someone else like that, it stops feeling like attraction. It starts feeling like a weight on their chest, like a job they never applied for. So she pulled back. Not to be cruel, just the way you pull your hand away from something gripping too tight. And Pete's response? He doubled down. More texts, more check-ins, more planning, more effort to fix something he couldn't see clearly enough to fix. And the wall between them went up a little higher every single time. Now, here's where Machiavelli enters the picture, and not the way you'd expect. Machiavelli wasn't writing a manipulation playbook. He was watching how people actually respond to power. And one of his sharpest observations was this: the person who needs approval is always controlled by whoever gives it. Think of it like a boss who's afraid his team won't like him. He can't give honest feedback. He can't make tough calls. Every decision runs through one filter. Will they still approve of me? He's not leading anymore. He's performing. And everyone around him knows it. That was Pete. Every text was a small surrender. Every "is everything okay?" was a vote of no confidence in his own worth. And she read that, not on purpose, but the way we all read social signals, as weakness, not moral weakness, the kind that kills attraction quietly from the inside out. This is the approval trap. You walk in trying to be good enough, and the trying itself is what signals you don't believe you are. By month 3, she was distant. He was drained. Nothing he did moved the needle. He was running out of moves, and more importantly, running out of reasons to keep making them. That's when something broke open. Act 2. I'm done negotiating attraction. Pete didn't have a breakthrough. He had a breaking point. He was sitting with his phone, drafting another text, trying to reopen the conversation, soften the tension, try one more time. And he stopped. Not because he had a plan, Because he was tired. Tired of engineering something that refused to be engineered. He put the phone down, didn't pick it back up that night. That was the beginning. No big speech, no strategy from a book, just a quiet decision. Stop bargaining for something that should never need bargaining. Stop trying to create a feeling in someone else when that energy was costing him everything he had. He realized something simple but brutal. You can't negotiate your way into being wanted. You either are or you aren't. And the negotiating was making him less so every day. So he redirected it back to the gym, not as a distraction, but because it was his. Something that existed whether she was happy with him or not. He called a friend he'd ghosted for 2 months. He picked up a project at work he'd been dodging because he was too busy managing the relationship. Day by day, he stopped building his emotional life around her reactions. He started building it around his own direction. But here's the part most people miss, and it's the key to everything that happened next. From the outside, this looked like pulling away, and in one sense, it was. The texts dropped off. He stopped over-explaining his schedule. He stopped asking if she was okay every time she went quiet. He wasn't cold. He was just no longer available in the frantic, desperate way he'd been before. She noticed. Within 2 weeks, she was reaching out more, making plans, asking where his head was at. The whole dynamic flipped, not because Pete ran some calculated play. It flipped because he had actually changed. He wasn't performing independence, he was practicing it. Here's why this works, according to the research. Psychologist David Buss studied what women find attractive across dozens of countries and cultures. The same thing kept showing up. Confidence, decisiveness, and social standing ranked far above agreeableness when it comes to attraction. Not above kindness. Kindness matters deeply. But agreeableness, the habit of always going along, smoothing every edge, avoiding all friction, that reads as low status. It sends one signal loud and clear. I don't believe my presence alone is enough. Pete had been so agreeable, he'd vanished. When he stopped vanishing, she finally had someone to be attracted to. Now let me be very clear about something. This is not play hard to get in a nicer outfit. Playing hard to get is a performance. What Pete did was stop performing altogether. He stopped performing need. He stopped performing availability. He stopped playing the role of a man whose worth needed constant proof. Machiavelli said it plain. The leader who needs the crowd's love is controlled by the crowd. He can't hold a position because any stand that risks disapproval becomes too expensive to take. Pete had been that leader, always adjusting, always accommodating, always checking if he still had approval. The moment he stopped needing it, the whole dynamic reversed. Fear creates pressure. Stability creates attraction. Everyone, not just women, moves toward stability and away from pressure. That's not a gender thing. That's a human thing. Pete didn't fix the relationship by working harder on it. He fixed himself by needing it less. And that turned out to matter more than everything else he'd tried combined. So where does this actually show up in your daily life? Let's get specific. 4 arenas, same pattern every time. Act 3, 4 arenas where this shows up. Same principle. 4 different situations. Watch how the pattern repeats. Arena 1, dating apps. Here's what most guys do wrong before they've even met anyone. They reply instantly, every single time. A match comes in, and within minutes there's a response. Eager, available, ready to go. Sounds fine, right? But think about what that actually says. Nothing else is going on. No other priorities, no life pulling at your time. Just waiting by the phone. When something is always available, it loses weight. That's not a dating trick. It's how your brain assigns value to things. Think of water from a tap versus water in a desert. Same water, completely different value. And it goes deeper than reply times. It's your photos, your bio, the energy behind your messages. If everything screams, "Pick me, please pick me," that's what people feel. The fix isn't gaming your reply time. It's actually having a life that competes for your attention. So when you give it, it means something. Your attention should feel like a gift, not like something you're trying to get rid of. Arena 2, the first date. Watch what a nervous guy does on a first date. He agrees with everything, laughs too fast, avoids anything that might cause even a little friction, asks her what she wants to do, where she wants to go, handing off every decision because he's scared to get it wrong. He thinks he's being flexible. She thinks he doesn't have opinions. It feels like kindness. It reads as anxiety. A man who picks the restaurant, suggests the plan, and holds his ground when challenged. He's not being pushy. He's showing there's someone actually there, someone with a spine, someone worth being drawn to. Over-accommodation on a first date doesn't say, "I'm kind." It says, "My worth depends on your reaction." And that dynamic, that early, sets the tone for everything that follows. You're not building a foundation. You're handing over the blueprints and hoping she builds it for you. Arena 3. Long-term tension. This is where Pete lived for 3 months. Once a relationship is established, anxious behavior looks like overchecking, over-explaining, and trying to manage the other person's mood around the clock. It's asking, "Is everything okay?" twice in one evening. And over time, that creates a specific kind of exhaustion in the other person, not because they don't care, because being someone's emotional thermostat is draining. Think of it like carrying a backpack that gets heavier every single day. That's what it feels like to be someone's only source of stability. You didn't sign up to be their anchor. You signed up to be their partner. And there's a big difference between those two things. When Pete stopped needing her reassurance to feel okay, something shifted. He went from being a weight she managed to being someone she actually wanted around. That difference matters more than most advice will ever tell you. Arena 4. After the breakup. This is where the approval trap does its worst damage. The relationship ends and your gut screams. Explain more, reach out more, make one last case, more texts, more vulnerability, more effort to prove your value at the exact moment she's asked for space. Every move in that direction confirms the exact thing that pushed her away, that your emotional stability depends on her decision. Going quiet after a breakup isn't a power play. It's the only thing that restores perspective for both of you. You're showing through action, not words, that you don't need her answer to move forward. And here's the hard truth. Sometimes that quiet is what makes her reconsider. Sometimes it isn't. But either way, you've done the only thing that actually serves you. You've taken yourself off the auction block. Same principle in all 4 arenas. Stability attracts, neediness repels. Not because anyone is cruel, because all of us at a deep level move towards solid ground and away from quicksand. But here's the part most guys still get completely wrong, and it's the most important thing in this entire video. Act 4. The real definition of power. Most people hear power and think control, manipulation, jealousy games, making someone need you by keeping them uncertain. That's not power. That's anxiety wearing a mask. Fake power is trying to control the other person, making them jealous on purpose, withholding affection to trigger a response, running calculated moves so she feels like she might lose you. Men who do this aren't strong. They're scared. They just found a louder way to express the same insecurity Pete had. The need is the same. The mask is just harder to feel sorry for. Real power is quieter. It's controlling your need for their approval. That's it. That's the whole thing. And most men never get there, not because they can't, but because nobody ever told them the difference. And when you don't need her to choose you in order to feel worth choosing, everything shifts. Your decisions stop running through the filter of, will she pull away? Your behavior stops being tuned to her reactions. You stop shrinking. Not because you've gone cold, because you found solid ground. And people who stand on solid ground don't need to perform. They just show up. Machiavelli wasn't pushing cruelty. He was making an observation about human nature that still holds 500 years later. The person who doesn't need you is harder to dismiss, not because they're withholding something, because they're complete. And completeness draws people in where neediness pushes them away. Think about the people in your own life you respect most. Chances are they're not the ones who chase your approval. They're the ones who seem fine whether you give it or not. That's the energy Machiavelli was describing. Now here's the kindness piece, because this gets twisted all the time. Kindness matters. Being thoughtful, being present, being generous, those things matter deeply. But kindness from a place of fear hits different than kindness from a place of strength. When Pete planned every date because he was terrified of losing her, that wasn't generosity. That was a transaction. I'll give you this, and in return, please don't leave. When you do something kind because you want to, not because you're managing the temperature of the relationship, it lands in a completely different way. One feels like pressure. The other feels like care. Same behavior on the surface, different foundation underneath. And people feel that difference even when they can't name it. They might not be able to explain why one version of "let me plan dinner" feels warm and the other feels suffocating. But they feel it in their gut. Every time. Pete didn't become cold. He became grounded. He stopped texting out of panic. He started showing up because he actually wanted to be there. Same actions, totally different energy underneath, and she felt it right away, even if she couldn't put her finger on what changed. The guy who texts you because he's scared to lose you and the guy who texts you because he's thinking of you, those feel like two completely different people. Even though the text says the same thing, the man who runs himself doesn't need to run anyone else. That's the principle. When your stability comes from inside, from your work, your health, your friendships, your own sense of direction, you stop needing a relationship to hold you together. And that's exactly when you become the kind of person a relationship naturally forms around. Attraction follows strength and independence, not effort, not sacrifice, not the number of thoughtful texts you sent, not how many times you asked, "Are we okay?" Strength. The quiet kind that only shows up when it's real. The kind you can't fake because people always know. Conclusion. Here's what nobody tells you. The man who stops needing to be chosen is the one who gets chosen. Pete didn't fix the relationship by working harder. He fixed himself by needing it less. And that changed everything. If this hit different for you, drop a comment below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. More like this are coming.